What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I am Alex, and I'm joined yet again with Troy for part four. I believe I got to start keeping track of how many parts we're doing here. But we just kind of wanted to have a discussion. I really wanted Troy back, just for the simple fact of a lot's been happening. AAA, there's Hogwarts Legacy, kind of involved in that with Avalanche and the way WB is going. I kind of just wanted, an industry vet's, opinion and just to kind of chat with him. So, Troy, well, number one, how are you doing? What you've been up to? I mean, is there any? I know you talk about indie games that you're more, under the radar. Is there anything you want to shout out or that you've been doing recently?
Well, yeah, I play a lot of indie games now. In fact, I kind of don't play that many AAA lately. I'm off playing lots of Steam indie games. The one I played recently, or I'm still playing, is Balatro. This is the
Okay.
poker roguelite where you're trying to make the best poker hand you can, and you collect jokers over time. And it's a great game if you're one of those people who likes to play poker and get the highest scores you can. So
Yeah.
I've got like 30 hours into that in the last couple weeks. So.
Oh my. Well, you know what? Considering the discussion we're having, it's probably a good idea. Supporting the indies and going indie, and maybe we can just kind of start there. Let me just like lay on a really big question on you in terms of the future of the game industry. So we're gonna talk, and I've talked in videos like the layoffs and AAA, the budget's ballooning, right? And like things have to change. So I guess a big question just throw at you: what do you kind of see as like the future of the industry? Like more double A, like those mid-team, all indie, like triple A. Where do you see triple A standing in 2 to 5 years? Like what do you think 5 years from now looks like in the game industry?
Wow. Yeah, I think it's going to change a lot in the next
Yeah.
2 to 5 years, tremendously. I saw this morning. I don't know if this number is accurate, but the I think it was Mark Kern reported that there are 17,000 layoffs in the AAA industry now.
Yeah.
In the last like 2 months or something, which is huge, right? That's a
Right.
gutting of the industry. That's a lot of people to be leaving, or being forced out, I guess. So clearly, to me, there's a message that these high budget titles are unsustainable. They're not making enough money. They're too expensive to make. Games are going to have to be made more cheaply. And so just with that knowledge, I think we're going to see a reduction in staff size across the board. I think almost every game in the future is probably going to have smaller staff. And I also think AI is going to come on pretty strong here. That it's gonna start helping both with art development, with narrative development. It'll probably, I don't know if people are talking about this, but I think it's going to play a big part in QA in the future. That you'll have a lot of QA bots that you can train on how to play a game, and your QA team will probably have like half the team will just be bots trying to play the
Right.
game. So I think AI is going to reduce costs too. But bottom line is what the AAA industry is doing right now, unsustainable. It
Yeah.
cannot continue, and you can see it as people are losing, thousands and thousands of jobs all across the industry. And I feel really good that Avalanche has so far avoided any sort of, backlash. But I guess when you're the best-selling game of the year, they probably have a little bit of leeway now. Yeah.
Right. So when we think of studios potentially losing people, do you think you mentioned AI maybe like supplementing it. Do you think ultimately just smaller-ish game, like you have to drop back from these 60, 70, 80 hour games? 'Cause if you lose half, maybe it's if you're doing still the Horizons of the world that cost 250 million and it needs to be 50, 60 hours, but you have half the staff, it can't take twice as long. That won't work either, right? So you have to kind of, what do you like? Do you think it gets pulled back in terms of the length?
That's a difficult question because I think the consumer, the player base, has an expectation for big
Right.
involved
Right.
games, right?
Yeah. Which
And
I'm
because of
against. I've
that,
always kind of been against, on the channel. I said I think the last, 10 or so years have, and I get it, is you go back to PS3, 360. I truly do not think you can sell people on $70 games that's a 10-hour story. And I mean, we used to for $60, but I think people have been conditioned. And I get it. I get it in terms of value of time and money and stuff. I understand it, but we did do it for a long time. And I think people have just like let that go.
yeah, I think that well, to me, I'm going to kind of go a little bit sideways here. To me, as a developer, I believe that you have kind of a sacred trust with your player. And
Yeah.
so that whenever you're making a game, you need to be thinking of who your player is, and you want to please them. You want to thrill and delight your player. you don't have a game unless you have a player,
Right.
right? And so to me, whenever I'm thinking about what's the future of the industry, I'm thinking, well, it needs to adapt to what the players want, right? And I think that part of what we have right now is a bit of a misalignment between what I hear players are saying they want and what they're getting delivered
Yeah.
in a lot of their AAA games. And I think that's why you're having these layoffs and these backlashes is the games aren't selling the way that they used to when they were AAA. It seems like as recently as just 3, 4, 5 years ago that if you had a good property and a great big game, that's all you really needed to sell,
Yeah.
right? That as long as a good property and a big game. And now it feels like people have gotten tired of these big games that feel like they have a lot of filler content and that is just padding out the time frame. And so people are backing away from their big AAA games. They don't have enough time, and they're being more selective. And to me, that just means there's not enough market space for that many big AAA games to compete with one another. And in order to compete, they're going to have something special in each case, right? Or
Right.
something that makes them stand out. In the case of Hogwarts Legacy, it was of course the property had this
Yeah.
incredible Wizarding World. But if you're just another superhero game or just another, kind of a AAA game that's kind of a knockoff without a strong property, I think you're in trouble right out of the gate
Right.
because you're going up against other competing properties that are
Yeah.
bigger and bolder. And yeah, it's hard.
And
It's
that
going to be
goes
really hard.
to and that goes to like the idea, and I've been pushing it more recently, the like getting back to creativity, which I think, it's indie games. It's smaller, and that's why I think like those double A studios, that's where I kind of see, or I want to push there. Whenever I see these industry vets that like open up their own team, they're not going to be, 500-person team. So that really does feel like double A. That's what you're going to need to do, because I think the creativity of it needs to. That's what I think the PS3 three, and that's like where I kind of grew up in my early teens, so that's my biasness. But I really think it was a creative, especially like PlayStation with things like Puppeteer, that you'll never get a game like Puppeteer now. Like that's what we need more of, is the creativity and just doing things differently. Whereas visuals and like the tech is more of a thing now, and it's a hard switch back to that. Like it's not going to take like a day; it's going to take a while.
Yeah. I think you've made some really good observations there that games used to be a lot cheaper to make, and so people could take more risks, right? They
Right.
used to we could try this, we could try that, we could try different things. And now, if you're going to make a game and you're trying to play in the AAA space, it's so expensive that it impacts everything you do, from the top all the way down. In fact, just funding a game is a big part of why I think the industry is having this shakeup that it's having now. Um, because well, I'm sure you followed a little bit of the Sweet Baby stuff and that
I
sort of
do.
thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And the reason that the okay, I guess I'll go into this. This is my opinion on why there's kind of the whole Sweet Baby issue going on, is that in order to make a game, especially a AAA game, because it's so expensive, you need to get financing. So your chief financial officer is out looking for how we get money into making this game, whatever it is, even Warner Brothers or Electronic Arts. And so there's a lot of financial money out there. You can get ESG money, right?
Mhm.
Environment,
Yeah.
social governance money, but it comes with strings attached. And so if you want some of this low interest money to help you make your game, you're going to have to include certain, initiatives, diversity initiatives usually. And that's where Sweet Baby enters in, is that you've got these great big companies, AAA games, that have taken some ESG money. And as part of that, they said, well, we need to have an outside service come in and review the game to make sure it fits our
Right.
criteria for ESG. And that is all cost, right? All of that is additional money. It makes the game more expensive, and it doesn't necessarily make the game any better
Right.
because they're just trying to hit certain check boxes on their ESG targets. And so all of that is overhead. All of that is cost. All of that is making your games take longer to make, be less fun because they're coming in and pulling out things that they think might be offensive or might be troubling, replacing characters with others. And so you end up, I think, with games that don't satisfy the customers, even though they're meeting the check boxes for ESG funding.
Right.
And I think that has to change. And I think that is changing. I think this backlash is people
Oh yeah.
saying, I don't want this stuff in my games. Not because anybody's really bothered by the diversity part of it. I think they're bothered more by the messaging part of it, where they
Right.
go and just swap things around and try and push political messages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going in with that purpose, right? Like they're not and people even not so aggressively into it have just said like, well, why do you even have writing team? And like, well, like you said, like it's literally part of an initiative, like that's how it's built. Well, if you take a few steps back too, it's like, well, you have a whole writing team. Why do you even have writing teams if you're just going to have and they'll say, well, they write the main stuff and they write some of the side stuff. Well, still, shouldn't you have like your own people that do it? So it kind of just falls in its face right there. So yeah, no, you're right. I mean the backlash there, like you're really seeing it in real time, like this thing fall. It's controversial, but you're seeing it literally fall apart in real time. And I can't imagine that like the things on Steam and stuff, right, where they're putting up notices and then everybody's getting banned and stuff. That's not going to last that much longer because things are moving so much quicker online, now than they ever did. The backlash is going to be there like in an instant, and they're going to have to figure it out. So yeah, what do you think about? Or do you have any comment to that? I guess. Oh, that's the
Well, I was just going to say that I think if you watch YouTube and stuff, everybody seems to be angry with Sweet Baby for, messing up their games, right? That's what they're concerned about. But to me, I'm looking at it from a financial standpoint, and I think
yeah, yeah,
what's the real issue is that it's adding cost to games,
right,
and and it's not actually improving the sales of games, right? People aren't getting more sales from these DEI initiatives, and so I think what actually is turning the DEI train around is money, right?
yeah,
That
yeah,
yeah, that it's not because people are angry or pushing back. It's because they're not making the money they used to, and so it's
right,
starting to look like a cost center rather than something that they could get money from. That's my
yeah,
opinion on what's
yeah,
happening. And I think if you take that opinion, it makes it look less like it's a big fight and more like it's just a
yeah,
shift in the industry. It's a
right,
shift in how work business is being done.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's I mean, like, and you're seeing it with I don't because there were several of these companies, right, that laid off just like mass amount of people. And one of the ones I think it was maybe when Xbox did their thing and the report was they're trying to eliminate like similar jobs. So they went after a lot of like the community managing team because maybe a game had like four and they only needed two. So it's
Yes.
very,
Yeah.
and it's sad, like, losing people like that's still sad if they've been there. And some people were there for like 20 plus years. That sucks. But you look at it, and yeah, you say, does a game really need four when it really only needs two? It's the same thing here. Do we need a writing department when we literally have a writing department in terms of the money? I mean, they can get rid of Sweet Baby and all that stuff. They can get rid of it because they don't like, or because of the backlash, and even just frame it as, well, it's the money, even though it probably is the money just in the first place. Like, there's plenty of ways they can maneuver, even like politically on social media, and say it was a cost thing. So yeah, I don't think that's going to take that long to fix itself because it's blowing up too fast, for them that they're going to have to do something pretty quickly. What
Yeah.
what do you think about the push to this might eventually get us now to Hogwarts and the future there. What do you think about live service? About the future for live service?
Yeah, let's go ahead and hit this head on with what came out from with Perret, right? The executive who came out and said, with Hogwarts Legacy and Harry Potter and moving into live service.
Yeah.
I think I responded to it the way almost everybody else did when it first came out, which is like, what the heck is this guy even saying? Does he understand the property that they just released, the best-selling game of the year, and now you want to make it a live service game? That's
Yeah.
how it read, right? And I took it that way too. Like this executive doesn't get the property. Although if you read into it, and I think some of the other guys in the Hogwarts Legacy community, like Retro and Expecto Go, and I think you've read into it too. If you read into the articles, Perret doesn't say that that's definitely happening with Hogwarts Legacy. He's
Right.
talking about it as though, and here's how I interpret it: is that Hogwarts Legacy did so well that it's become a brand, right? So they're thinking of Hogwarts Legacy. This is my opinion. I haven't worked for, WB for 3 years now, but my opinion is they saw that Hogwarts Legacy did so well that the executive team out there is going, this is a brand. We can go and put Hogwarts Legacy on anything. We could go
Right.
put Hogwarts Legacy on a 3D, racing game, or we could put it on a match 3 mobile game, or we could put it on a live service game. That's how I ended up interpreting it later, was like, that when they go to make more Hogwarts Legacy product, they could do different things, not just
Right.
the direct RPG that they did for the first round. That being said, it's unclear, right? It's not sure what they're thinking for the future of Hogwarts Legacy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be an online service game. The
Right.
thing is, in my opinion, is that at the executive level, what he's saying does make some sense. When a live service game does well, it becomes a predictable source of
Right.
income and revenue stream. That's what they care about at the
Yeah.
executive level, rather than what they've done in the past, which is put tons of money into the big bet game. And then if that game doesn't earn its money back, that's just they just lost all sorts of money there and they have to write it off, like we saw with Suicide Squad, right?
Right.
And
Which was
so
live
I
service.
yeah, which was a live service game. Yeah, which is like everybody's like, what? That just blew it because it's a live service game. It's hard to tell if it failed because it was a live service game, or I don't even know if it failed. It just disappointed, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are making the case that live service was a part of its reason that it didn't do as
I think it
well.
was a mix. I mean, I tried
Yeah,
to be more because I think the sweet baby thing then like kind of invaded it. I tried to be more fair and just I don't think the way they handled the story and the characters was good. And I really went after the mission design. There was I believe 5 missions from beginning to end, including endgame. Same thing. I hate that. No matter I don't care if it's live service. I don't care if it's a normal game, right? Like it doesn't matter. So I tried to be more specific than just Sweet Baby injected it and now it's bad, right? Like, which I think a lot of that was like the second wave. The first wave
right.
was mad about Batman, then it was Sweet Baby is entirely responsible, and then it's like, no, I think the game is just bad, like the entire, like the whole thing. So I think it was a mix, but I don't think live service did them any favor because I do think it's moved on, and I've said it too. I completely get your point. Every company wants that one or two. Like that's the thing because, like you said, that every year, every month, you can just rely on that revenue coming in. I totally get it. And I mean, for Sony, they walked themselves by accident into Helldivers. That just worked. They didn't even. They were talking about like there's no AAA games from us. I mean, it technically wasn't from them, but the way they were even talking is like, yeah, the forecast on PlayStation is going down. They might actually sell more just because of how, you know what I mean? Like it just randomly happen. And for WB, they see Hogwarts and they say if we can just get that to work somehow as a live service, we're set for life. And I absolutely get that. I don't respect changing the people that are making it. If that's the case, right? I don't respect them going to Avalanche and saying, okay, you're gonna pivot now because that will not work. I mean, I'm at this point maybe like negativity, in my life where I really don't think that's a good move. And I also am I said it in my video. I'm kind of done giving them chances because they Gotham Knights, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman. They say isn't live service, but I found that job posting that said they were looking for live service, and I was the one who like broke that news. Avalanche has been hiring for people with MMO experience. So what's that about? So I mean, I give Avalanche the benefit of the doubt. I don't give WB Games the benefit of the doubt anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So with Avalanche, Avalanche is completely owned, right? They are owned by WB. They are not a
Yeah.
contract studio.
Yeah.
So WB could realign that studio to do whatever they want, right?
Oh,
They
yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
yeah, they
Yeah.
own the studio and they can move anybody around. The thing is I believe that WB, at least I hope so, is smart enough to realize that Hogwarts Legacy being the best-selling game of the year, that in order to repeat that success, they should do something very similar to the first game, just
Right.
improve it, fix all the problems, all the things that people didn't like, and then
Yeah.
double down on the stuff that they did like, fill in the gaps, and then release it as primarily a single player game. And I think everybody will just love it. Like, this is what we want.
Yeah.
We told you what we loved in Hogwarts Legacy. You gave us a great Hogwarts Legacy too. So if they do that, I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah.
But that the idea of Hogwarts Legacy as a brand, what Perret said, does make me concerned that what could happen is that they start going back to Avalanche, who did make Hogwarts Legacy, and they're saying, okay, now we're making 5 Hogwarts Legacy properties. And even though Avalanche, you guys are making the official Hogwarts Legacy 2, we need some of your guys to help us make this game over here, which is going to be live service, and then this game, which is a racing game, and then this game, which is a match 3, and then this game. And so you'll get the Avalanche team pulled apart, and a lot of their people could get pulled off into other studios or having to do other things.
Right.
I would be concerned about. That's when I say Hogwarts Legacy could be a victim of its own success, that that's
Yeah.
what could happen. That executives could look at Hogwarts Legacy as a brand and decide that that their other brands haven't been doing very well. Let's just
Yeah.
latch onto this one and do a whole bunch of Hogwarts Legacy stuff. You end up with market saturation, you end up with a bunch of diluted product, and then
Yeah.
you end up with people not really happy. That's my concern with Hogwarts Legacy. The best thing they could do though is just say, Avalanche, go make Hogwarts Legacy 2, fix the things that were wrong, and we'll let you go, right?
Right.
And that would be the best thing. But I don't know if WB can do that when they've got so much money invested in the property.
Yeah.
They, you know,
Yeah, and I
it'll be
just,
interesting.
and because I do, and as many people have said, like time and time again, Hogwarts Legacy can have multiplayer things, like it can have dueling or wizards chat, like you can inject, and then live service technically could just mean DLC. Like in there was that one poll where it was like 95% of games are live service, but it was like a weird the survey included like if you just do an update, if you do like a patch that is considered live service. So the survey was kind of stupid, but ultimately, yeah, DLC, even like Assassin's Creed, done in the past, like DLC can be considered live service. So if they were to do a Hogwarts Legacy 2 and do a season pass with two different things, that could be a live service game. And if that's the case, whatever. I mean, that's not a big deal. And
Right.
I think you can do Wizards chess as a multiplayer thing. I don't know about like Quidditch because now you got the Quidditch game, so I feel like that's kind of backed off. You don't have. What do you think? Can I ask you about that real? Because I know we've talked about Quidditch with Hogwarts Legacy 1, all that jazz. My opinion, I feel like it's slightly changed. I think the necessity is almost zero to have it in Hogwarts Legacy 2 because of Quidditch Champions. But do you think people would get mad because there's still like an expectation in a wizarding world to have Quidditch?
I do. I actually do. I think that players, I don't know that you would have to be able to play Quidditch in Hogwarts Legacy 2, but I think players are going to expect Quidditch to be part of the environment in
Oh,
Hogwarts
okay.
Legacy 2.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not involved in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
product,
Yeah.
but just, I always try and think, what do fans want? What do fans expect? What do players? And there's enough disappointment that Quidditch wasn't in the first game that I
Yeah.
think in the second one you at least have to make a nod to it. Even if the player doesn't participate, they should be able to interact with Quidditch players or go to games or maybe even have a mission built around
Right.
Quidditch or two.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
could do that. Ideally, what I think would be the very best for Hogwarts Legacy is that they made Quidditch part of the gameplay and it was really fun and interesting, and that you could kind of develop your career as a Quidditch player. You could be the
Yeah.
best bludger, you could be the best goalie, you could be the best, seeker.
Yeah.
And I think players would really eat that up. But yeah, I don't know if that. I don't know what they're doing on the Quidditch standalone game and how much of that itch is scratched there.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Because that kind of
but
just threw a little like thing into it where it's like, hey, if you have a whole live service game now just to Quidditch, I get, because again, people said it so much. I think maybe like an just yeah, like you said, a mission just against like AI. You just play it. It's like a repeatable kind of mission, but it's not like this tournament kind of mode thing. If you just inject it just a little bit in two, it's fine. But I don't know if you need the fantasy of like the full on. It needs to have Quidditch as like 50% of the game because you have Quidditch champions. I could see it not being as like important, but I don't know how it works and all that jazz. But that was a new thing to get thrown in ever
yeah,
since the last talk.
the thing with Quidditch, because Hogwarts Legacy has been out a year, right? Now it's
Yeah,
been out a year. But before it was out, and if you remember, about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, well, I guess it's probably about 18 months ago. We were just finally getting the news that Quidditch wasn't going to be in Hogwarts Legacy, and there was a lot of disappointment. I remember people being, "Oh, well,
yeah,
that's too bad. Maybe it'll still be okay," But there was a lot of
yeah,
kind of sadness. And I was one of those people when I was working on the game. I was in the studio going, guys, we're missing Quidditch. We got to have Quidditch in the game. But the problem that we faced is that we were still figuring out our broom flight, right? Broom flight is pretty tricky, and there's actually a fair amount of tech in that because you have to stream in as you go over, the landscape. And so
yeah.
they were still working on that when we were trying to do something with Quidditch. And it
Okay.
became pretty clear that, just with the time frame and all the other things we were doing, that Quidditch wasn't something we could do well. Well,
Yeah.
now that they're on Hogwarts Legacy 2 and they do have broom flight, it makes me think that Quidditch could be, a key gameplay element. But it would be difficult. They would
Right.
have to put a lot of effort into it, just because, Quidditch as a game, as J.K. Rowling wrote it, is not that good of a game. You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't play well. It's all about the seeker. The other roles in the game don't really matter. But anyway, um, uh, I am surprised that Hogwarts Legacy came out, and once people started playing it, that they kind of just let the Quidditch thing go and
Yeah.
enjoyed the other things. And I didn't see a lot of criticism of it after the game had been out. And that was one of the things I would say I was wrong about. I thought there would be a lot more backlash for not having Quidditch in Hogwarts Legacy than it turns out that there was.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. I could see people. I am actually kind of surprised. I feel like maybe there's just so much else going on at the time. Maybe it had diverted everybody's thoughts. Um, what do you? I was going to ask. I think we maybe have talked about this, but considering we're in this topic, I want to bring it up just in case I didn't ask. So, as a developer, when you're going into now the second game, say it's untouched, like WB doesn't come in to try to change what it is. So we knew about. I think we talked a little bit about like the cut content. It was found. People did really nice videos, like putting together like the morality kind of systems and things like that.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
that something as developers that you kind of go back to like the first thing and say, let's pick five of these things and put them in?
Yeah, I think that would be the first place they would start is they would go back all the features that we were working on, things that we weren't able to include, stuff we had to cut while we were
Yeah,
building. A lot of that stuff is going to still have its bones in the game. It's still going to have assets, lying around on servers and stuff that they can, resurrect quickly. That would be one of the first places to go for what you're doing in the next game. Of course, some of it may not make sense anymore,
right.
but yeah, if I were working on Hogwarts Legacy 2, that would be the first place that I would start is okay, what was all the stuff we wanted to get in that we couldn't do? How much of that is now viable? The second thing I would do is go directly to the fan base, the Hogwarts Legacy fan base that's out there, this community, and watch every video you guys have put out about what they liked in the game and what they didn't like in the game. And
Right.
then make that into like a bullet point list of what you're going to do for your next game.
Yeah.
Because to me, the whole success of Hogwarts Legacy is because it hit that sweet spot of people who love the wizarding world and they were finally getting a game that felt like it was made by people who cared about the wizarding world, right? That it was that connection.
Yeah.
And so I think that yeah, going into the sequel, that's the same way to go. Go to your fans. What do
Yeah.
they want? What makes the game really good? Make the game for your core fans. Don't make it for the executives.
Yeah.
Make it for the fans. And if they do that, I think they'll be very successful. The
No, I
next game
know
will do
they were
well. Yeah.
pretty like in line with fans and all that with the first. Like, do you think in your history, do you think most games actually do that, or do you think they don't? Where they like say a YouTube kind of thing, they go on or they look at these people. Do you think like Ubisoft does that with Assassin's Creed, or do you think that's a more minority kind of thing?
Um, my opinion of the AAA industry as it's changed is that a lot of the guys who are really into making games have left. There's been a
Uh-huh.
bit of a brain drain out of AAA over time. There's still a lot of really great people in AAA. I don't want to,
Yeah.
disparage anybody, but I think the people who really love making games started to get fed up with all the overhead, with all the, the problems that they can't make what their players actually want and the executives. So I think a lot of folks have actually left
Yeah.
AAA. And so what you have now, a lot of people who are making AAA are more like policemen who are trying
Yeah.
to guard what they already have or what already succeeds and not take too many risks. And you see it especially at an executive level. And so I don't think that a lot of AAA developers are as engaged with their fans as the Hogwarts Legacy team is, as
Right.
the Avalanche team was. And I think that that was a really important part of Hogwarts Legacy's success and also going forward is that they tried to break down the walls between player and developer and say, hey, we're all in this together. But you don't see that on too many other games.
Nah.
And I wish you did. I'm a developer who wants players and developers to all get along and to
Yeah.
all be working together to make the best, experiences we can together. And that's one of the things that I think Hogwarts Legacy did right. And I hope that's what they do in the future going forward. But I'm
Yeah.
concerned, right? I'm also concerned because Avalanche has gotten a little bit quieter, in the last year. And they were going to release that behind the scenes video, right? You remember
Oh
that?
yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
they had this Chandler said, "Hey, we're doing a behind the scenes video. We're going to tell you about Avalanche." They had little clips of it, and then they dropped it. Right, it never came out. Ben Snow has asked about it. Expecto Go has asked about it. Retro has asked about it, and they're just like ignoring it. And I'm
Yeah.
kind of like, that makes me uncomfortable. That makes me think that somebody at an executive level at Avalanche has moved in to say, hey, we're dealing with a brand now. It's not just Avalanche. And so because of that, we don't want to foreground Avalanche too much, right?
Right.
That's what it feels like to me. But I don't know that that's really the case.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about it, the whole, like you said, breaking down the wall and having that just relationship. And it was special when they did it. And I think we both thought like that would make like a ripple effect. And I think it's still there. Like it's kind of like a pause thing where like it's ready to be resumed. Anybody else that does it is going to be rewarded for that same kind of like policy, right? Like just the engagement. But it stopped. Like they stopped. WB has not, which is this is not this isn't crazy that I would imagine W would do it. They didn't implement it in other studios. I highly doubt like Monolith when the Wonder Woman game gets closer. Suicide Squad was very picky with like who they communicate. So that ripple effect died, with Hogwarts Legacy, which is sad. But like
Yeah.
it's there. I think the lesson for anybody who, and maybe it's the more double A or indie, right? Like the lesson was still there for anybody to learn from it. It just has literally stopped, which is disappointing.
Yeah, and that's I think part of why I'm bully on the independent games because you see they do
Yeah.
a lot of early access, they do a lot of
Right.
interaction with fans, they do a lot of hey, we're making this game for you. What do you think is best?
Right.
And I would love it for AAA to take a lesson from your AA and indie departments to say, our community manager isn't just doing the PR promoting the game. They're also interacting with fans and saying, what do you guys want? How can we
Right.
make the game better for you? And I feel like Chandler was doing that at Avalanche, and I think he probably still is.
Yeah.
But part of the solution, I think, for AAA games to survive is to be more friendly with the players. They've got to like say, you're our audience. We want to make these games for you. Why don't we pay more attention to you and less to, the sweet
Yeah.
babies of the world?
Yeah. It could really simply come down to, well, like every game has its thing, but a lot of games seem like confused, right? Like even like the live service thing, like Gotham Knights. And Gotham Knights, looking back, is really not that bad of a game, and it really never was, I think, when it came out. But it wasn't like amazing. But that was a confused game. Like to say that was for any specific person is hard to do because it really wasn't, right? Because the game itself was more Avengers like, then they pulled it back, and even Suicide Squad, same thing. So it is hard, I think. I imagine. I guess I don't know it. But if you don't even know what your game is, because that AAA process is such a mess, hard to really be that. Because who are you talking to? If you're Suicide Squad, are you going to talk to live service gamers? Because what if the game is not it is a live service game, but what if it's not a good live service game, but it's got story elements? Who are you supposed to communicate to? I mean, and indie, double A, when you have your site focused more narrowly, you can actually find those people that like it's hard to find the right group for Suicide Squad. I don't think they did because I don't even know what the group was for Suicide Squad.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, you hit on it that it's hard to say who's your target market for this game. I mean, like who do you think is going to buy this? And you're like, I'm not really sure, because it's not really they're not hitting a key core fan base that where who your players are. It
Right.
just feels more like it was being designed by committee, where it's like, well, let's make sure we hit this checkbox and that
Yeah.
checkbox, and most of our money is going to come off of microtransactions. So let's build our game around getting people to buy lots of things, and that
Right.
changes the way your game is. If you're doing a single player game like Hogwarts Legacy, your sales come from the players enjoying the game and then word of mouth and that sort of stuff. It doesn't come from anything that they're buying
Right.
in game. And so it changes the whole way you design the game, right? It,
Right.
it, it completely changes whether you're trying to sell them while they're playing or whether you're like, oh, they've already bought the game, they own the game, let's let them do what they want, right? which
Right.
which is what happens when you have a nice single player game, is that you don't worry about players breaking your game as much.
we're a little biased. I mean, I've always been open with the live service. I give them chances, and I tried Suicide. I like Rocket League and Dead by Daylight. Like those are great live service games, but I mean, it's hard to hide my bias. I tend to believe. I think it's simply getting people to do what they're not good at or what they're not used to, and it would be the way for Avalanche, is the same way as anybody else. You go up to them and you tell them to make an MMO, which is what again really starts to scare me with like, why are you hiring and you want MMO experience? I think you can make a MMO Hogwarts Legacy. That's just a spin-off. Like I think that totally, and they wanted to do that back in like what 2001 too. So like it absolutely could work. But to have the team that literally made Hogwarts and then instead of making Hogwarts Legacy 2, you have them make an MMO. Not saying it wouldn't work, it wouldn't actually maybe please different kinds of people, but I think that's mismanagement. Because I really don't think they would do a good job because they're not built for that stuff. You'd have to almost,
Right.
well, you have to replace half of them, with people that know how to do an MMO. It's not even necessary to do something like that. That's just where I come in. I think the end product might be fine, but why do you have to do it?
Right. Yeah, I agree with you that Hogwarts or a Harry Potter game as an MMO in your head kind of sounds good. But then if you
Right.
start thinking it through, you start going, wait a minute, now I'm not the hero of the story. And my
Oh
friends
yeah.
aren't necessarily the hero of the story. We're all just a bunch of wizards running around. It starts to feel a little like World of Warcraft sort of feel rather than
Yeah.
I'm key in the storyline. And so it changes the whole way you design things, right?
Right.
It's not about the decisions you make anymore and how the story unfolds. It becomes more just about the little battles that you have and the little interactions you have rather than the grand story sweep. Which I think if Hogwarts Legacy 2 comes around, the place that I think they should double down on is more impactful decisions from the choices you make. I think a lot of people were saying, hey, if I want to be bad, I want to feel like I'm bad and have,
Right.
everybody come down on me for being bad.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if I make good decisions, I need to be recognized for that. And Hogwarts Legacy didn't have enough of those impactful decisions. Uh, uh, so I think people felt a little disappointed. But in
Yeah.
Hogwarts Legacy 2, that seems to me to be a good place for improvement. Make your
Right.
decisions more impactful. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a big L that I took because I defended. There was a IGN article I remember that went after, oh, if you kill somebody, like nothing really comes back at you. And I defended the game against that individual that I think blocked me afterwards. And then I ended up, I think I was wrong. I think it was a little odd. Like I think you can see how you can implement it, but it was odd. Yeah, you could kill somebody and then you're just going back into school as if nothing happened. And I didn't think it would be, and I don't think it's the biggest deal of all. I would not dock points for something like that, but you notice it in the game, and I didn't think you would notice it kind of going into it. So I'll take that loss. That's just the one.
Yeah, and I do think that's an area that they could do for improvement. Stuff like Avada Kedavra that should be treated like a spell of seriousness. And
Yeah,
the way that Hogwarts Legacy ended up treating it was like, oh, it's just like a super like a BFG gun or
it's an
something.
ultimate,
Bam!
the
It's
ultimate spell.
an ultimate spell, but they didn't treat it with the negative consequences which I would expect in Hogwarts Legacy 2 they'll recognize that, and so I would expect in Hogwarts Legacy 2 you can't Avada Kedavra everything. I bet it gets restricted. Just my opinion. That's my guess, but
Yeah. Well, we'll wrap it up here. We'll just open thing if there's anything that you want to say at the end, and we'll get going. But I thought this was a great talk. So any last thoughts on the industry, on Hogwarts, on anything?
um, yeah, I guess if I have any thoughts, I'm hopeful that as we go forward as a AAA industry, is that we just remember that we're all in this together as players, and because I'm a player too, right?
Yeah.
Developers and players are not on opposite sides, and I would love it for the industry to start to heal a little bit over our love for games wherever we can, and that's kind of my whole point
Do you think that
is
ever happens with AAA?
I think it can. I think Hogwarts Legacy did a lot of that, actually. I mean, Hogwarts Legacy had this huge headwind against it, right? Everybody wanted to kill the game in the gaming press. They hated it, and there were lists being made of who was playing it.
Yes,
They
sir.
attacked me because of my affiliation with it. Indirectly trying to get through J.K. Rowling, all that
Yeah.
kind of ugliness, and it was pretty intense there for a while. But then at the end, the game still sells well, and most people end up liking it. And you guys in the Hogwarts Legacy community did a super good job of kind of like just focusing on the gameplay and not getting too lost in the controversy.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I just feel like the game rose above all the stuff that was put in its way. It overcame all these obstacles, became the best-selling game of the year. It's like a rags to riches success story. Even though I think Avalanche was the right studio to make it, they did have the chops. Everybody says, "Oh, Avalanche has never done anything." Well, they did. They did Disney Infinity, and that was $1 billion game, guys. It also made $1 billion. It just was a different target. Yeah.
I tried to defend. I tried to defend leading into it, Avalanche's background and just the idea that you don't really have to, like, I think of, I don't know, Black Forest Games, who's the one who did Destroy All Humans, the remake 1 and 2,
Oh,
and now they're doing the TMNT game. They had like big layoffs, but like that's a smaller, I think, kind of like success story where it's like you can just you can immediately kind of just start doing good things. Like you don't have to make 10 terrible games and then get lucky. You can make like, oh, Destroy All Humans 1 remake was good. 2 should also be good because it's the same thing. And now they get to make a big kind of original but based off an IP. Like these things can happen, and you don't need to have like it doesn't need to be like the most well named or well known studio. So yeah, I feel like people kind of got into the whole because like maybe there's no names people recognized or whatever, or the background of the oh they never made an open world. I think you can kind of jump in and you just set your expect like it was an amazing first effort for like what it was. And if you take that and if you leave them alone, the second one could be like the jump could be back in the day, like the Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2, like just those like unbelievable jumps that realistically can happen. It's not like unheard of. So yeah, people were kind of hard on that one.
yeah, that's where I'm at with Hogwarts Legacy 2 as well. If they let Avalanche go and make a Hogwarts Legacy 2 and they let them learn from their mistakes, make basically a game that's quite similar to the first one, they just fill in the gaps. They will do great. I think they'll
Yeah,
come out with a game. It'll be like Mass Effect 2 or something,
yeah, that's a good one.
where the first one is good and solid, but then the second one knocks it out of the park.
Right.
I feel like Hogwarts Legacy is kind of positioned like that. The first one is good and solid. There's a lot of good bones in there. There's a lot
Yeah,
of really great stuff, but there are some areas where they could have done better.
yeah.
And if they do it in
Mass
Hogwarts
Effect,
Legacy
that's a
too,
good
yeah.
comparable. That's a good comparison. I think that lines up. I hope you get me excited, even though we're a while away from it. All right. Well, this was an awesome talk, and Troy, thank you again so much for stopping by. This was part 4. Four is an even number, but we should keep going. 5 is half of 10, so that's a good number too. But no, I thank you so much for being here, man. Is there any last goodbyes you want to say, and then we'll head off?
No, thanks for inviting me on your channel. I haven't worked in the game industry, so I feel like my it's been 3 years. I feel like my insight is waning, right? But I still like coming on your show and telling people what I think. So
Yeah, no, yeah, and that's all. Yeah, I'm not here to milk you for like insights and the inside scoop on Hogwarts. And I think you're a insightful guy, just naturally. You know what I mean? I don't think that's gonna go away. So I appreciate you doing this, honestly.
all right, well, cool. Thanks, Alex.
You're welcome. All right, guys, thank you for being here. Leave a comment, leave a like, and we'll see you if we do a part 5. I'll let you know. All right, take care, everyone.